Hi guys, my name is Roxy and I'm one of the mentors on the Move More program. Thank you so much for checking out this presentation in which I'm going to be talking about the 5 ways of well-being. To get the most out of this presentation, I would highly recommend having a pen and paper to hand, and then because it really encourages you, this one, to talk about, to journal and write down and reflect and that sort of thing. So if you do have a pen and paper to hand, please do grab it and make some notes as we're going along. Okay, so in today's talk, we'll be looking at the 5 ways of well-being, what they are, examples of them, ways that we can help with your own well-being, and ways that we can also apply that on the Move More program. And then finally, how you can incorporate the 5 ways of well-being into your everyday life as well. Okay, so these are the 5. So they include connection, being active, taking notice, keep learning, and then giving. So those are the 5 ways of well-being. And I'm now going to go a little bit further into which each one means. So the first one is connection. So strong evidence that suggests that feeling close to and valued by other people is a fundamental human need and one that contributes to functioning well in our everyday world. It's really, really important for our mental health and well-being. That connection, whether that's with family, friends, work colleagues, it's an essential kind of human need. And although it is important to feel comfortable in our own company, I also think it's equally important to enjoy that interaction with other people. So some examples on the screen there for ways that you can connect more with others. This can include talking to someone instead of just sending them an email at work, whether that's over the phone or speaking to them face to face, having lunch with a colleague, having dinner around a table with your family rather than separately, calling up a family member or friend and just checking in and seeing how they're doing. Putting 5 minutes aside to find out how someone really is. I think this one's particularly important because I think we have a real culture of kind of saying, especially in the office, how are you doing? I'm good. How are you? Okay, yeah, I'm fine. And then that's the end of the conversation. And you haven't actually learned how that person is really feeling. So really putting aside a few extra minutes to really delve into that and kind of ask more questions and find out how they are really doing. And then another example could be to give a colleague a lift to work or share the journey with them so you're not having to do it alone. So that said, if you can take 1 minute now to write on your piece of paper how you might have connected with somebody this week. Okay, so the second example is to be active. So the second way of well-being is to be active. Very relevant, obviously, to the Move More program because we are all about getting your body moving and being as active as possible, fitting into your lifestyle, as well as to do with your mental health. It is also very much to do with your physical well-being. Obviously, there's loads of health benefits to being active. These can include things like mental health benefits, such as your mood, improving your mood, your self-esteem, and even boosting your confidence and seeing the results of what your body is capable of. I think that's a really good point as well, because actually, the more fit and active you get, and the stronger you get, the more you can kind of see what your body is actually capable of achieving, which in itself can be a really empowering experience, especially if you're new to the gym and you go into it not really knowing fully what to do. And then hopefully programs like Move More could help you to empower you to then when you go into the gym, you can hold your shoulders back and think, I know exactly what I'm doing with this exercise. And there is a real sense of achievement every time, you lift those weights or you finish a session on the treadmill. So all of these things really can really boost your well-being. And also there's a whole science behind getting those feel-good endorphins running through, that also comes from exercising. So there's a whole kind of physical and mental health element to being fit and active that's really beneficial. So some ways that you can make changes throughout the day to incorporate more physical activity into your routine. Some of these you might already know or might already be doing, but hopefully there's one or two on there that you haven't thought of before. These can include small changes like taking the stairs instead of the lift at work, taking a walk during your lunch break, getting off the bus or the tube one stop earlier to allow yourself more of like a walking distance for the final part of your journey. Desk exercise is a great way to be more active. Those are basically exercises that you can do while sitting at your desk. So we can teach you a range of those on Move More. If you're interested, do speak to myself or one of the other mentors, and we'll happily show you some different desk exercise workouts. But they're all quite gentle mobility, dynamic stretch style exercises. So really, really good for just stretching out your muscles, and a really important way to just take a break from your work as well. And then another way is to walk to the shops instead of driving to the shops. So those are just all very small changes that you can implement into your lifestyle in order to become more fit and active. So with that being said, please take 1 minute now to write down, pause the video and write down, have you been active this week? And if so, which examples you can give. It can, no matter how big or small, just taking a few minutes to just write them down. And the good thing about doing this reflective practice of writing down things like this is hopefully by the end of the presentation, you'll see the different ways that you are implementing these 5 ways of well-being, and maybe a few that you could kind of improve and kind of implement a little bit more without realizing it. Okay, so the third example of ways of well-being is to take notice. Okay, so the third way of well-being is to take notice. This is basically reminding yourself to take a few minutes each day to really broaden and strengthen your awareness of what is going on in the environment around you, and really getting in touch with your senses and how they're working. So it's having that heightened awareness and self-understanding, and allowing yourself to make positive choices based on your own values and motivations. So there's lots of kind of benefits to be taken from taking notice each time you leave the house or even at home. So taking some time to just enjoy the moment and the environment around you, which I think in general we could do a lot more of. So instead of like taking the phone out and taking a picture, actually sitting in that moment and enjoying it, and without feeling that you have to share it with somebody else, but just sit in it and enjoy it yourself. So some examples of ways that you can take notice more within your everyday lifestyle are up on the screen now. They include, for instance, getting a plant for your workspace, whether that's at home or at an office, whichever space you work in, having a nice plant, because then you can kind of see the different way that it changes. Does it need watering? Is it dying out, or is it growing? You know, is it changing colour? Is its leaves forming? And it's something to kind of nurture as well. So, and obviously, like having plants in your room can often have really good physical benefits in terms of like purifying the air and things like that. So, lots of benefits to having a plant within your workspace. Another example would be to have a clear the clutter day. I personally am a strong believer in your environment having a massive impact on how you feel mentally. So, for example, when my living space is very cluttered and messy, it can often make me find it harder to relax and unwind after a long day at work. So definitely having a clear the clutter day, not just tidying up, but really throwing away things that are of no use to you anymore, can be a very therapeutic experience and a way that you can change up your own environment. Another example would be taking notice of how your colleagues are feeling or acting. We often spend a lot of time with our workmates, so really taking time to actually sit back and observe and see how are they doing, and might they need a little bit of checking in and seeing how they are, etc. Taking a different route on your journey to and from work. I love this example because actually if you keep taking the same route to work, you're more likely to keep seeing the same things. Whereas if you just vary up your route occasionally, you're more likely to have different experiences or see different things as you're walking along. And then obviously the route changes as well with the seasons as well. So lots to kind of take in there while you're walking along. So taking a different route can be a good avenue. And then another example would be to visit a new place for lunch. So get yourself physically in a new environment, but also hopefully trying out some new food. I had a friend as well who used to say to me every time they go to a restaurant, they want to try something that they've never tried before. Obviously within reason, but that can also be a great way of taking notice. So just kind of varying up your routine and not just sticking with the same things. And push yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit too with all of those. So that said, please take a minute to write down just at least one example where you might have taken notice this week. Okay, so example number 4 is to keep learning. This is definitely one of my favorites. I feel that when you're younger, learning is constantly encouraged of us from like that early age of school up into college, uni, etc. But once you've kind of left education, it kind of comes down to you to implement your own learning. So when we talk about that, it also helps to obviously enhance your self-esteem and encourage social interactions and a more active life, depending on what you choose to learn. And that can be a completely fresh new skill. It can be work related, or it can be something that you're just interested in for kind of personal enjoyment. So that said, a few examples of ways that you can kind of learn something new, no matter how big or small. They include finding out something new about your colleagues. Obviously, in this presentation, we've talked a lot about interactions with your colleagues, and that's simply because we just spend so much time together at work that, we do find it's really important to keep up those kind of social interactions, and it then stems into learning and taking notice, etc. So yeah, finding out something new about your colleagues that you didn't know before about them. And then also, hopefully they would then ask you and you can reveal something new about yourself if you wish to, and you can have that kind of extra dialogue with that. Another example would be signing up for a new class and learning a brand new skill or kind of enhancing one that you might already have. Reading the news or reading a book are both examples of learning something new. Setting up your own book club, so taking that kind of love of books and reading a step further. And then you've also got that social interaction there by meeting other people and then talking about your shared interest in this book. Doing a crossword or Sudoku is a really great example of keeping learning. Doesn't take a long time. You can just put maybe 10 minutes aside each day. And studies have shown that it's massively beneficial for like the logical side of your brain and keeping that active as well. Another example could be just researching something that you've always been really curious about. Again, that can be work related, or it can just be something for your own kind of pleasure, or just something that just tickles your interest and you kind of wonder about. That's also an example of learning. And then finally, learning a new word and then finding out its meaning can be just another small example. So that said, how have you learned? What have you recently learned that's new to you this week? Again, no matter how big or how small. So yeah, please take a minute or two to just write that down. Okay, and that brings us to the final way of well-being, which is to give. Participation in social and community life has attracted a lot of attention recently in the field of well-being. Individuals reported a greater interest in helping others are more likely to rate themselves as happy. So taking that time to really care for somebody else and contribute your time in that way can be a very fulfilling and rewarding experience. Really, really good for, again, your self-esteem, your mental well-being, etc. And these can be small acts towards another person. Those small acts of kindness can go a long way, or it can be on a wider scale, such as volunteering your time regularly to a cause that you're passionate about. Some other examples would be really small ones, such as just saying thank you. Um, I know that seems like such an obvious one, but especially in like living in London, often people do things for you and they kind of forget to, and other people forget to thank them. And actually, that's a small act of kindness and recognition that you appreciated someone doing something nice for you. So saying thank you, or volunteering your time, like I said, to something that means a lot to you that you're passionate about. That can be charitable, or it could be another organization, it could be mentoring, etc. But anything that you have a passion for that makes you feel good, for volunteering your time. And then finally, being there for a friend or a family member is another example of giving. So that said, have you given anything this week to someone or something? And if so, what is it? So yeah, just taking a minute to write that down now.